We're in better shape. All right, we'll start again. Welcome to In the City for Good's most recent forum. We've been doing this for several years now. Tonight we have the candidates for mayor of the city of Rochester with us. Since 2015, if you're not familiar with In the City for Good, we have had this community grassroots organization that is open to all residents. And one of the main missions that we have is to help communicate and provide more information for all of the citizens of Rochester on important issues. And obviously our elections are very important. So tonight we have with us Mr. Brett Noser and Ms. Kim Norton, and they will be providing us with responses to questions that we had sent out a few days ago to them. This is a format that we have. We have solicited questions from people who are on our email mailing list, and you can be added to that if you'd like. We have also had that request for questions on our In the City for Good Facebook site. Those questions that we received, we have put together and sent to the candidates. A couple of the questions tonight we will probably have compiled, and so in fact one of the questions we will have a double amount of time for you to be able to answer. The process will be that in the first section, the candidates will each have 1 minute to give an introduction to themselves. Then, because we just have two candidates, we are going to allow a minute for responses to each of the questions. And then at the end, we will have a minute summation from each of the candidates. We don't need a random number generator, which we've used when we've had more candidates. So we will alternate, and I will start with one, and then we'll go back and forth to you each. So we'll begin, excuse me, first of all, with a summation. And so, Britt, I'd like you to be the person who starts with a minute of telling us about yourself.
Okay, so I'm delighted to be back with you again for another one of your forums. I am a lifelong resident of Rochester. I was born here. And I have deep roots in Rochester. So I have a very sincere interest in seeing the city be successful and to continue on a natural trajectory of growth. And I think this is what will lead us to stability. I think public safety is the primary challenge that we are facing. And I would like to see a reduction in our crime rate in our city, especially in regard to violent crime and to crime involving drugs. At DMC, the Destination Medical Plan, which is encouraging a lot of runaway spending of our tax dollars and not providing much of a benefit to the citizens. And finally, I think we need to work hard to remove partisan agendas from our city government. I think we should focus on what the charter prescribes, working on public safety and infrastructure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Norton.
Hello there. Thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm happy to be here this evening with you. I've lived in Rochester for 33 years. I got my start being a volunteer, and actually was a volunteer in many organizations and in our schools. From that time as a community volunteer, I actually helped people get elected to school boards and finally ran myself. Spent 8 years on the school board, ultimately ran for the legislature where I served for 10 years, went back and went to school, and then decided I really wanted to be home in my community doing everything I could because I love this community and I'm committed to making a difference. So I have not changed my focuses. I still focus on good governance. I still focus on sustainability and resiliency, creating safe neighborhoods with affordable housing throughout our whole city, so that no matter where you want to live, there's something you can afford in that quadrant, and really working on redevelopment so that this community continues to develop with co-design methodologies, which is really about community engagement. So the community is at the table to help make decisions. So I really look forward to your questions this evening, and happy to move on from there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our first question that I'm going to be directing to you, Kim, because we're alternating. Some feel we are not getting what we should be getting from the DMC. How would you respond to that?
Well, the Destination Medical Center is funds that come from local and state government, and it is the locals that get to make the decisions about what DMC is. We do have the DMC EDA, the Economic Development Association, who has laid out some ideas and plans based on what the research showed at the request of DMC years ago. But it is the citizens, and it is through co-design and the city council that ultimately approve every single thing that happens in this community. So I think that's a point that gets lost sometimes. Destination Medical Center is about building infrastructure, replacing older infrastructure, and making this community more walkable, livable, and comfortable for people. But it is done with the community, and it is done with approval by the city council. I have the pleasure of serving on the DMC board, but nothing we decide there ever happens unless the city council votes for it.
Thank you. And Mr. Noser. Oops, you're muted again. Sorry. Just a moment. Have to unmute. Are we ready to get?
There we go. Sorry.
Okay, now let's start again. So some feel we're not getting what we should be getting from the DMC. How would you respond to that?
Yes, I would respond from the campaign trail by telling you that this is a very common feeling amongst the citizens. And I think there's this feeling that DMC is a plan that is being railroaded through when they see things like their parks that are historic being reimagined, as they like to use the language. I think there is a real disconnect between the DMC folks and the citizens. I think from what I've learned about the co-designer process that the mayor likes to tout, I think it's kind of a way to sort of fake community buy-in. You take a small number of people, there's no transparency. We don't know how these people are selected. There's no minutes from the meetings. So this is a way where they give these people a few choices, and then they try to make them feel like they had a hand in what happened. And I can just tell you again from the campaign trail, the feeling is that the citizens need to have more say. It is their money after all. And they feel like they're just the worker bees for DMC with very little real benefit, very little added value for the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, and again, but well, Mr. Noser, this will be yours. How can the police better communicate with the public?
Yes, when I did spend some time looking at the dashboard that was mentioned in the original question, and I think the public want to feel like they have a very good access to their police and communication. I wasn't previously on Facebook before the campaign, but I did follow the police Facebook page. And I found that to be, quite frankly, very informative. Not much chance to ask questions, but I don't really see Facebook that way. So I think they could do engagement like that. The Chief Franklin's work on the Safe City Nights, I thought was a smashing success. I attended a bunch of those and thought it was really well done, and it provided an opportunity to sort of get up and just chat with the police and to establish those relationships. So I would continue along those lines.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Norton.
Well, I appreciate Mr. Noser mentioning some of the communication, effective communication tools that have been used. Safe City Nights is indeed one. It's been going on for 2 full years and is quite successful. But the police also do more. The dashboard, I do want to clarify, the woman that built the dashboard left some time ago, and they have just replaced that position. So if you have suggestions for the new person, things you'd like to see on there, please let us know. That can be arranged. I also think There are other programs, many, and I'm not going to read the list, that the police do, including Coffee with a Cop that happens. They will attend any event if they're invited to talk about the work that they do. They're very approachable and will provide information. I ask for data all the time from them and get it. So if there's something that you need that you're not seeing, please let me know. I'm happy to get that. But you should also know that there's a Police Civil Service Commission and a Police Policy Oversight Commission that are all staffed by citizens and members of this community. So there is direct communication with representatives from our community every month.
Thank you. So, Ms. Norton, what is the mayor's role during the council meeting, or what should it be? And kind of related to that, do we need an at-large council position and a mayor?
Well, those are two separate questions. At the board meeting, the mayor gives a report, very brief at the very beginning. But the mayor's role is to participate in conversation based as an at-large elected official who is accountable to every constituent to be able to give that perspective. So mayors can participate, and I do actively participate on issues, but we do not have a vote. The question about whether we should have a member at large remains with our Charter Commission. The Charter Commission does have a second at-large member who is the City Council President, and she is the one that manages the board meetings and actually holds the gavel. That's actually quite unique here in Rochester. It isn't managed that way. Often a mayor has a vote or the mayor chairs the meetings. That doesn't happen here. So if we want to make a change like that, that has to come through the Charter Commission primarily, or through a change in the legislation. But we are a charter city and are controlled by that. And is there another part to the question, or is that both? Did I answer?
That would be time, Helen.
Oh, right, yes, okay, and it was, you did answer it, and we actually have a related question coming up that will kind of, these three pieces were kind of hard to, they kind of overlap, so you may be able to finish your thought with the next question. But Mr. Noser, for now, again, what is the mayor's role during the council meetings? And do we really need the at-large council position and a mayor?
I think we need both, because I think the mayor can play a role at the meetings. I think my own personal view, a reading of the charter would be something in between what Mayor Norton does, which I think is excessive, reading the proclamations, the hereby, whereby the mayor says, and the sort of Hazama Brady concept of being more hands-off. I think that it should be something in between. I think we need the mayor. The mayor should be there. I think that's important, but and playing that sort of oversight role and keeping an eye on everything, the watchdog role, and then having that veto power to use when the citizens' needs are not being met by what's going on. And so I wouldn't hesitate to use that. So I would plan to attend the meetings. I know the mayor does when she's in the country and not in Amsterdam or in DC. But I think it is important that you have both. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then the related question that we'll start with you, Mr. Noser, is that the mayor does have some administrative duties that both of you have referred to at times, and has also become a de facto ambassador. Do these duties need to be looked at, and would they fit into that role at the council meetings and elsewhere?
No, I think those are roles that have been established in terms of chief magistrate with the police. I would intend to have a very big role in how the city is policed. The ambassador role that I think Mayor Hazama created with great success, I think is a necessary component to what the city does. Although I think, as I mentioned before, I think a hybrid role between the two is something that I would see as very effective, especially the ability of the mayor to basically go anywhere in city government and ask questions. That's what the citizens, I find, on the campaign trail are so interested in. They have questions and they feel like they don't get satisfaction when they ask for answers. And so this is a role also that I would see fitting into those roles that we already discussed. Thank you.
And Mayor Norton, Ms. Norton.
Sure. When I ran for mayor initially, I ran to be a strong mayor in a weak mayor system. And there are challenges to that. I think I have accomplished that goal, but there are complications based on our charter and other things come to bear as well. One of the things that a mayor spends a lot of time to, this administrative duties, does have to do with representing the community, staying on top of things, responding to the community when they have questions, referring them to their city council member who actually does represent them. And that's something we have to be very careful about. The council members want to speak to their constituents, even if they contact the mayor. So that happens on occasion. And also filling boards and commissions is a huge responsibility and takes a great deal of time. So it is, yes, and it is doing the things that sharing opinions. It is helping the council, but it is also responding to constituents and managing boards and commissions and going out in the community and speaking the many events we get invited to.
And what I'm going to do here, because again, this actually 4-part question in some ways. And so I'm going to have you, Ms. Norton, continue, and then Mr. Noser respond more directly to whether or not do we really need an at-large council position as well as a mayor?
Well, that's a matter of opinion and not something that we can do without a change in charter. I do think a mayor could play the role of the city council president and manage the meeting. I'm certainly quite capable of doing that and did it at the legislature and as chair of the school board. So I would have no problem doing that, but that is not how the city is set up. So, again, if the charter wants to change it, I am happy to step in. I don't see that happening anytime soon, but we are in a period of transition. So I've called myself often a transition mayor from a small town to a big city. And if that's what the Charter Commission or the people of this community want, I have the leadership skills and the history in order to step right into that role, and I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you. And Mr. Noser, specifically relating to that part of this multi-part question is, do we really need the at-large council position as well as a mayor?
Yes, I think that it's good to have both. It's kind of like a president prime minister situation in countries with different government powers. And so I think the figurehead role with some duties in regard to the police, I think is a very, it spreads the responsibility over sort of some different organs of the government. And I think it's been fairly successful in the past. I think now the weakness of it is being revealed a little bit with how Mayor Norton has sort of usurped a lot of power that should belong to the council. But in terms of some of the other duties with the veto and things like that, I think past mayors have sort of left that on the table and led a lot of citizens to believe that the mayor is actually weaker than the charter says you are. So I think right now, from my study of it, as in my judgment and instinct, I think right now it's still a good system, and we indeed need both positions to allow for the ambassador role that we were already discussing and the other duties that the mayor has. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Back to you, Ms. Norton. If we were to receive an influx of migrants and with the area employers needing employees, what programs would you create to welcome and facilitate these new residents?
Well, we do have migrants and immigrants that come in our community every day, all the time. And they come through Catholic Charities primarily. So to that end, I have regular meetings with Catholic Charities and a huge team of other people in this community that provide the resources and services for our immigrant and refugee populations. So there already is a structure in place, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I participate in that regularly with John Meyer from Catholic Charities and others. I have actually even gone out and spoken directly to groups of immigrants or refugees that come in so that they know they have support at City Hall and feel welcome, and that they have a place to come if they have issues or concerns. So that system is in place, and I'm actively involved in it.
Thank you. And Mr. Noser.
Yes, if there were a sudden influx, I think that the mechanisms that we have in place are sufficient to provide a welcome. And I think Rochester has historically had various different influxes, to use the word of the question, that have come in, from the refugees from the Vietnam War to the Somalis in the 90s to the wider spread Hispanic migrants. And so I think we've done a good job, and I certainly would not be looking to create any new program. This is something that is best done by the private sector and by religious organizations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, we had a couple of questions that are related, but deep enough that I'm going to ask our timekeeper to give 2 minutes for the response, and we will start with Mr. Noser. So what is the protocol in place for the homeless in our skyways, parks, encampments, et cetera? And what would you do to change, what would you change to address these issues? And then more specifically, there was a question about the city's assistance with the fire station used for the landing. The questioner said this was very much appreciated, but what other ongoing support would you plan to support in the next 4 years to assist with the homeless in those ways, as well as addressing the skyway encampment issues as well? So 2 minutes for this response.
Okay. Well, this is an issue that, again, from the campaign trail, that the citizens are very concerned about, and they're honestly they're concerned about it for 2 reasons. For the assistance of those experiencing homelessness is one concern, and the other concern is public safety. I've had a lot of citizens, have sent me dozens, if not hundreds, of pictures of encampments from our parks, from under bridges. I recently have posted some of those on my social media. I have a lot more. I might release some of those. And so we have garbage, there's human waste. People have sent me pictures of like methamphetamine pipes and needles and all sorts of things in our parks. And so we must admit that we have a problem. And the question is, as you're highlighting here, is what do we do about it? I think we have had some citizen leaders. You mentioned the landing and in the Salvation Army and the Dorothy Day House, Catholic Charities, many of these organizations, other churches on their own provide assistance. But I think it's very important to provide what is needed for these people that are experiencing homelessness. And I think many times it's a spiritual need on top of a material need. And I think that we must not ignore that, and we must encourage that need to be met. In terms of what we can do, we can work with the county in regard to what benefits they're offering to make sure that there isn't a structure in place that is encouraging migration of people who have this homeless existence. And then to touch on the skyways, I think this problem has been, after many complaints, been mitigated to some degree, although I have pictures, as I said, of people in bus stops and people near downtown. And so this must start with a zero tolerance for this type of encampment in our parks. Even in our Central Park by the Heritage House, there were tents that when I have visited at various times throughout the summer. So it is a difficult question, and it will, if it were easy to solve, it would have been solved long ago. But I think where we need to start is we cannot tolerate the encampments. They're not good for those experiencing need, and they're not good for other citizens either. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Norton?
Thank you. Yes, the first part had to do with the protocol in place, and so I'll answer that directly. When we tackled homelessness, it was within months after I became mayor, I noticed people sleeping in the skyways that had never been discussed. We worked with the county. We put a protocol in place. The city council did. They voted that sleeping and lying in the skyways was not allowed. And we only did that after we assured that we had a warming center and room for people so that we were not putting them out in the cold. And in fact, even opened up buses to drive during the coldest days to make sure that we were not doing anything that would harm people that were experiencing homelessness. So the protocol is you cannot sleep and lie in the skyways. Again, they will be referred to, if someone is doing that, they will be referred to the warming center, the Dorothy Day House, the Salvation Army, and the landing when it gets open again. So we do have that in place. And so I don't want to change that unless we do not have room for the homeless in the places I just mentioned. And it is below zero. And we have those days where it could be dangerous for someone to be outside. That was kind of the deal that the city council struck, was no sleeping, no encampments if we have space available in town. And some choose not to use that. And that is definitely an issue. We have a continual meeting that happens regularly with all the players that we're talking about. Dealing with housing and homelessness is primarily in the county's realm, and they've been quite clear about that. That is their area, and they don't really want the city, except to assist them if they're asked. They don't really want the city involved in that issue. And so we partner with them, and they have been quite open to that. We signed up to a House America plan jointly with the county so that we could qualify for more funds in order to build warming shelters, and also some of the state deed funds have been able to be forwarded on landing. Oh, that scared me, Dave. Jumped.
Okay, Dave is scary. No. Yes, okay, thank you for the extended answers here. Ms. Norton, we are back to you for a question related now to the library. And what is your support for a second location for the library with a surface lot and full accessibility?
Well, as a huge supporter of our Rochester Public Library that was award-winning and we're quite proud of, I have been very supportive of fixing up and repairing the wonderful building that we have there. That is happening now. They're repairing the roof as we speak, but they've had their challenges. I'm a huge supporter of branch libraries. And so if there are funds available and there is interest in a second branch or a third branch, I certainly would be supportive of that, and it would have to be someplace other than downtown so that it could have surface parking to be more accessible. Also, I've researched some models in other communities where a school and a library work together and with some shared space. And of course, there's safety concerns with access to students during the day, but there are some models with partnering with other organizations in order to make a second or third or branch libraries more affordable. So I'm certainly open to that if that's a direction that the community wants to go.
Thank you. Mr. Noser, your comments about support for a second location for the library?
I would not support a second location, but I would entertain getting rid of the downtown library in favor of a new, more accessible location. I think on the campaign trail, again, I'm going to refer to information that has come to my attention about the budget that our library has. It certainly better be award-winning for $10 million a year, which is is almost what the budget is. 55 full-time employees with another 20-some FTE. I think the library in this town is way overfunded. And when I talk to citizens, I just don't find that many that use the library. I know there are people that use the library. I spent my childhood on Saturday afternoons, especially in the winter, in the library, digging through books. But it seems to me that the library is involved in much more than just books these days. And some of those may be good new missions for the library, but it seems like there's a lot of mission creep there. There's the budget is just astonishing to me in the number of people. I cannot imagine what all of those people are doing. And but I think a new location that would be more accessible, I think would be a very good idea. So that is what I would support, but not two, definitely not two. We're already overstaffed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is somewhat related to a comment that Ms. Norton mentioned about some communities and putting libraries with schools. And so the next question is, where do you see a way to partner better with both the county and the school district? Again, Mr. Noser, you'll start.
Mm-hmm. Well, I see a good place for the city to partner with the county on primarily public safety and then the homeless issue that we were already talking about. So I think we need an improved drug task force. I think we need to focus on this like nothing else, because this is having a very negative effect on our schools as well. When you look at the problem with drugs that we have in this community that we don't have a handle on right now. In terms of the schools, how the city can partner with the schools, this is again public safety as I see it, because we have a school board, an independent school district who manage their own affairs. In terms of partnering with them, though, I see safety in our schools, which is a real problem. And this is an area where you have city police officers who are in the schools. That was a little bit of a challenge to make that happen, but this is an area where I see there could be further partnership and more cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Norton, partnering with the city, the county and the school district.
Thank you. Yes, years ago, we had what was called tri-government, and that disappeared. And as mayor and with the new city council 2 years ago, we did reopen a type of tri-government meeting. It is not exactly as it was before, but we do get together regularly. The city and county actually meet monthly and talk about issues that are in common, some of which Mr. Noser mentioned and others that he didn't. So we do collaborate on that. We've collaborated on homelessness. We also collaborate on OCJC, which is Olmsted County Justice Coalition, and I attend all of those different meetings. We also, the tri-government meeting included the school district, and so that relationship is there. The leaders of those groups all meet now regularly, informally, to try to find out what do we have in common, what things overlap, how can we collaborate and cooperate better together. And there have been drastic improvements in the last 2 years with our relationships with both the county and the school district, because we all work at it.
Thank you. Ms. Norton, then the next question is directed to you first. What is your position on preserving the 18 holes at Soldiers Field? And then related to that, what is your position on 2 full aquatic centers? And because we have a 2-part question, we'll again use this, we'll give you 2 minutes for both the golf course and the aquatic centers.
Thank you. And this needs clarity because my opponent's been dishonest about my opinion on this. I have been very clear for several years that I believe 18 holes should be preserved at Soldiers Field. I have worked with the community, the golfing community, the pickleball community, and others to make sure that we give the community what it wants in its sports areas, and there are many needs and desires, but to be able to do that in other parks around the community and preserve 18 holes at Soldiers Field. So there's no question, and people that are paying attention would know that because I've been on the record in writing and in public about that all along. Silver Lake is a different issue. So there will be a brand new aquatic center being built at Soldiers Field that will have a lazy river and many other venues for water, including splash pads. But Silver Lake, the plan from the park board did not have a second pool. And I have been a huge advocate for maintaining that second pool. And so I will do everything in my power to make sure that as a growing community, we don't cut services like golf or swimming for the residents that live here, but that we do work to add pickleball and curling and all the other things that people want to do at other parks throughout town. I will also say that that the Silver Lakes, that the park board is interested in talking about a second pool, maybe not at Silver Lake. My preference would be to leave it there, but I think there could be some discussion with the community and lots of input from the community. If a second pool was put, say, further northwest or northeast or wherever, whatever land they might be looking at, would Silver Lake need to continue to be a pool? And could it be a larger splash pad and water park instead? They are talking about that. I don't know what direction they're going to go. The park board is the one that makes those decisions, of course, with funding support from the city council.
Thank you. And again, Mr. Noser, again, these related things related to some of our parks and things, your position on preserving 18 holes at Soldier Field, and as well as 2 full aquatic centers being needed in the city.
Mm-hmm. First, I think there's a very important distinction and point that needs to be made in regard to golf at Soldiers Field. Saying you support 18 holes is not the same as saying you support the as-is architect designed golf course, that you support preserving that integrity. And so we did have some messaging that had some, in light of the mayor going on record in the Post Bulletin, which we could not find before. Again, just saying, so she went on record and said she will not put political capital behind maintaining the golf course integrity. So that is our point. We will be modifying the messages in deference to that opinion. But I am for preserving the as designed golf course. It is unthinkable that after neglecting pools in Rochester for 30 plus years, that the only place to put the pool has to disturb the golf course, considering our 3,000 plus acres of parks. So I think, trying to play both sides of the fence is important. This is a really important issue to so many voters that I've talked to. And I think it's a majority opinion too. So, I mean, I think why not do the right thing and just say, we're leaving the golf course. Nobody needs to worry. We're doing it in perpetuity. It's over. Let's just close the case. But that isn't what happens with these master plans and with the DMC consultants coming in. How many times does city staff and the park board have to be told no by the people before they do what the people want? And I think that's why the people feel helpless, and they want real opportunity to give an opinion on stuff. That's why the co-designer thing is just it's a scam. It's not legitimate buy-in from the citizens. And this is the way people feel. They want hands off the golf course. They want hands off the Silver Lake Dam, not dam modification. They're trying to use these words that aren't truthful. Dam modification is not what will happen at the Silver Lake Dam, according to the plan that Mayor Norton wants. It will be the removal of the dam and replacement with sort of corrugated sheet metal and some sand berms and artificial rocks. In regard to the pools, as I already touched on, Rochester needs some better pools. I think one of them needs to be a year-round facility. This is again, how come we can't do the right thing in Rochester? Why do we have to talk for years until that is a need that is universally requested by citizens on the campaign. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Noser, we're going to shift gears to another topic. What are your comments about the new Uniform Development Code, the UDC?
Yes, this is something that over the course of this campaign that I have learned more and more about. It is a very lengthy document that has, I think, some pluses and minuses. As I was doing some research on it, I think in general, it puts more responsibility onto the city staff and the non-elected people and removes some opportunity for those public hearings, which I think is a negative. I noted that it removed the power of the guidance of the HPC, the Historical Preservation Commission, in favor of a staff member. So I thought that was bad. It just, for instance, takes away things like cul-de-sacs in the name of equity, because it isn't fair that somebody might work a little harder and buy a house on a cul-de-sac. So it has some of those equity pieces in there that are seek to divide the citizens. Some things I like are like the smaller lot sizes. I think that's advantageous. We did that after World War II, smaller houses and smaller lots. And from what I can tell, it looks like it can be modified in the future. So I see that as a positive. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Norton?
I think Mr. Noser stated well that the UDC is a very complex document. It has been voted on by the city council. They made a number of amendments, which always makes me nervous when things are done on the fly like that, but hopefully they will be okay. And also, as has been mentioned, it can be modified. So the Unified Development Code has things I love in it, and it has things I'm concerned about. And I think because it can be modified, and that we are just going to need to implement it. It'll happen after the first of the year as we transition from the old land development manual to the new Unified Development Code, and track what's working and well and what's not working well, listen to the community members, the developers, the builders, the staff, and make changes as we find those needs. So I guess that's what I have to say about the UDC.
Thank you. Now, the next question has to do with the city attorney, and should the city attorney ask the courts to establish specialized courts such as drug court, local veterans court, mental illness court, et cetera, that will help divert those individuals to more effective handling? And so again, Ms. Norton, you are first.
Well, this is one of those areas where we're talking about two different governments, the city and the county. And the OCJC is where we discuss those types of things. We already do have drug courts. I believe they've talked, and I don't know if it's active, about a veterans court. Those are expensive to do, and they're under the county's purview. So we have had those discussions. We'll continue to have them. There was just a huge report out last month at the OCJC about the drug court and its successes, but also things we need to watch for as we move ahead. And so, yes, I think the city attorney can mention them, but it isn't up to the city attorney to do that. Organizations like OCJC and the courts itself will make those decisions.
Thank you. And Mr. Noser.
Yes, I had heard this term before, but I confess that I did have to look it up in preparation for this debate. And this is an area that when I look at the duties of the mayor and in the city, that I don't necessarily see a direct correlation, but I see the mayor as a voice for citizens in general and as a bully pulpit voice. And so the things I read about drug courts and other specialty courts, they're trying to keep nonviolent offenders in the case of drugs out of the prison system, and so basically they give up their rights in court in exchange for agreeing to a treatment. But many times it's not inpatient. There's a risk of relapse, and there could be additional costs associated with it. But I think in general about crime, when people talk about crime, speaking of courts, the courts are a huge component. It isn't just, are the police doing a good job and are they funded? Is the mayor lobbying the justice system to say, we need some relief. We need to stop having charges plead down. We need to stop having lenient sentences, and we need a juvenile detention center so we don't have to try to make it look like we don't have any juvenile offenders when we do. And so then we either send them far away or we release them back onto the streets. And neither one of those is a good choice. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Noser, you get the next question. This one is moving, and so I will give the whole question because the beginning of it may sound slightly different from what the questioner was asking in the end. So if elected or reelected, how serious will your administration take threats to our city and the health and safety of our residents? But this was specifically due to our region's changing climate. What changes, if any, would you make to the current strategies?
The current strategies are very aggressive. I think the mayor learned them from the Germans when she went over there and discussed this with them. They bought very heavily into it in Germany, and we see now that that renewable energy, which is part of this strategy about climate change, can nowhere near provide the constant load of energy that our lifestyle and economy as they exist in Rochester and in Minnesota. And so my goal would be to roll back some of these initiatives. The mayor has a certificate in energy or something like that from a very left of center foundation. And so I know it's near and dear to her heart, and I appreciate her sincerity in that. But the bottom line is it's a dream to have energy with no consequence. And in the short run, who pays for it are the working and middle class. Your energy bills will go up. I think there was something comment that she made in an article said her RPU had said $2 a month increase with all renewables, which, I mean, even a rudimentary study will show you that that's impossible. So I would look to roll back those restrictions, and that way we can unleash the economy and we can make ourselves attractive. We can keep that competitive edge. You don't have a competitive edge except for winning certificates and winning accolades from your elite peers when you convert your city's economy over to the high church of climate change. Thank you.
And Ms. Norton.
Oh my. I have a master's degree in leadership and energy policy from the Humphrey School of Public Affairs at the University of Minnesota. So let's just be really clear about that. We are part of a climate smart municipalities with Germany. We have a sister city in Moosburg as well, who produces photovoltaic. So yes, I am interested in climate change. In fact, an hour ago, I was at the Energy Commission meeting, and we are aggressively working on addressing the climate change and doing what we can to support the Paris Accord, to lower greenhouse gas emissions, and to do all we can to save the planet for our children and grandchildren. So do I take it seriously? Yes. The health and safety of this community, of this state, this country, this planet is worth our concern and efforts to do everything we can to preserve it and make it better. So I hope I've been clear on that, and I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Now, the next question is a little bit lengthy, and again, both candidates have had the question presented to them, but I'll read it. And Ms. Norton has the first response, and Mr. Noser, if you would like me to repeat it at that point, I'll be glad to. So the questioner had said, thinking globally and acting locally has never been more important than at this perilous time. And then a quote, the International Committee to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, ICAN, has made an appeal to cities, the ICAN Cities Appeal, to support the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, TPNW. In the US, 65 cities have responded to the appeal and indicated support for this treaty to abolish nuclear weapons. Given President Biden's recent statement that the threat of nuclear war risks Armageddon, would you support a Rochester City Council resolution endorsing the US ratification of the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons? So Ms. Norton.
Thank you. When I first became mayor, I got involved with the US Council of Mayors and actually signed on their letter in support of this issue, stopping the proliferation of nuclear arms. So I personally have signed on to that. The city council asked not to have that brought forward to them. The mayor does not force the city council to take action that they don't want to take. They have the vote, and they can make that decision. Should they want to do a joint resolution, I would be more than happy to sign on with them. But at least 4 years ago and 3 years ago, when I signed on to the letter, they were not interested and would not take it up at that time.
Thank you. And Mr. Noser, you've read this, but would you like me to read it one more time?
You don't have to read it again.
Thank you.
I did. Yeah. So I would say, I would assume the mayor would like this. This is just the kind of performative photo op type program that she is always in search of. I would say that part of this question talks about local politics, and I would like to emphasize the fact that local politics are very important. In fact, they touch your life far more than national politics do. And so we do need to act locally for the sake of local, our livelihoods. In terms of nuclear weapons, I think it's interesting to think about this in terms of the world right now, as it mentions. Never has the world been more short of diplomats than they are right now. This highlights the seriousness of that situation, that when you have incompetent people at the highest level, bad things can happen. And this is something that we have to keep in mind. In my study of foreign policy and sort of realpolitik, I would not be in favor of getting rid of nuclear weapons at this stage. I think that would be very foolish. And I wouldn't see myself signing on to something like this. Although I find it probably one of the most interesting questions from any debate or forum that I have participated in this adventure of running for mayor. So thank you.
Thank you. And we have one more question before we get to the summation. And again, this question was submitted, and to me, it's the kind of question, and we do have enough time to do this. I would like to give each of you 2 minutes to respond to this question, which is in the list that you were given. And Mr. Noser, you would begin with this question. What would you personally like to promote for the betterment of the city if you are elected?
Mm-hmm. There are several initiatives that I think are lacking in our city. And I think one of them is an appreciation for fine arts. I think our public art that has been produced in the last number of years, going back 10 years maybe, is embarrassing for a city of our caliber. If you walk into the Gonda building and you look at that beautiful, way over life-size sculpture, you see what the trajectory of Rochester was at one point. I mean, that is a sculpture that you would expect to see in Rome, not Rochester. And so I think we should try to build on that. The Mayo brothers and the early Mayo fathers were very interested in the aesthetic. And Rochester has just completely divested itself from that. The projects we've done, like the Heart of the City, Discovery Walk, these are dystopian projects. Their artistic quality is very low. Their construction quality is very low. And for a city that wants to be seen as a world leader in general, I cannot believe the low quality of our public art. And the citizens, for the most part, support me on this. We have an arts center, which again is kind of a dystopian barnacle on the sort of Mayo Civic Center that won't stop metastasizing into this huge blob. We've ruined Mayo Park. And so I think we need to think about the aesthetic in Rochester. I would like to see our artistic public art quality go up. And I think I would emphasize that. I would emphasize our history here. Another concept that DMC promotes is reimagining of Rochester. And this is something that almost no citizens want to do. We can grow and evolve, but we can keep the heart and soul of Rochester. It's not always an either or, like Silver Lake Park. We don't have to change everything just so city leaders can have a new shiny project to go and show the people in Amsterdam or go and show the people in Washington, D.C. We need to have more organic leadership in Rochester, and the arts would be a wonderful place. We should have an art museum. We should have a museum downtown. Imagine how much more useful a museum downtown would have been than spending all that money on the heart of the city. Thank you.
Okay. And Ms. Norton, your 2 minutes on what would you personally like to promote for the betterment of the city if elected?
Thank you very much. And I'm sorry my opponent has such disdain for contemporary art. I love all art, contemporary and the old masters as well. I would say a couple things I have begun working on, I'll continue to work on, and that is helping our city as we transition from a smaller town to a medium-sized city. And some of that has to do with capacity of our staff, upping our game so that we are prepared for the future and growth and development in our community. One of those projects is called the Data Alliance, and it is helping our staff and me as mayor learn to use data better. So while the elected officials will still ultimately make decisions based on a number of factors, including what our citizens want, it also is about having data, having it not be siloed, having access to that data so that we can make data informed decisions. Also, as I think probably everyone here knows, we did participate in the Global Mayors Challenge, and we have nearly $2 million to spend on workforce development and growth in the coming years. That will be for the next 3 years. We have the $1 million from the grant and $750,000 from the federal government, as well as all the federal funds, the infrastructure dollars that are coming forth from the federal government and being sent out to communities. For instance, the 6th Street Bridge and our energy, new district energy plan. We have to have workers to do that. So I am very excited about being part of the work that's going to come for the next 3 years, making sure that we have the workforce, the trained, qualified, and talented workforce that we need in this community. And also in participating with the National League of Cities on an inclusive entrepreneurship program, so that not only can we train people to get jobs, we can help move them beyond that job into being entrepreneurs and owning their own businesses. So there's lots and lots of work to do. We, as mentioned before, we're a growing community, and that growth is not going to stop. We cannot go backward. We cannot pretend that things aren't changing, because they are.
Great, thank you. And now we will have the final summation for each of you. And again, because we have enough time, we'll give you 2 minutes to just give us the reasons why you feel you really should be the person that all of the people here on this call and who are watching should vote for you. And so this one, Kim, sorry, Mrs. Norton, will ask you to begin. And again, you'll have 2 minutes for your overall summation.
Sure. It would be easy to spend my time refuting all the potshots and misstatements that my opponents made today. And I'm not going to do that. I know people in this community know me, and if they want to know more, they can give me a call or go on the website and look at my record. So we're just going to ignore that for now. I do want to say I've dedicated most of my entire adult life on public service. I love this community. That's why I give it my all. I want to do everything I can to continue to keep the quality of life as high as possible. I want my children to grow up in the same kind of community, or the next generation of children to grow up in the same kind of community or better one than my children had. We have a wonderful high quality of life here. It's recognized time and time again by many entities who measure our community and say we're a great place to live. Most recently noted as a great place, a great small community to have a college, which was really fun. So I want to talk about what's to come. We have a wonderful future in this community. We have the possibility that no other community in the state has, which is to upgrade our infrastructure with state money. Yes, they're tax dollars, but they're not all coming from Rochester. Those tax dollars are coming from every citizen in the state, but they're coming to our community to upgrade our infrastructure and make this a great place to live. The Destination Medical Center has been criticized, but it also has done a wonderful job of upgrading our infrastructure, giving us wonderful walkable downtown. And that downtown, the Discovery Walk, is going to go right into Soldiers Field, where they're spending $10 million on upgrading the north end of the park. And I'm very excited for that. I'm a leader. I've been a leader in this community for 30 some years. I have the experience that it will take. I've already carried us through one crisis, and I'm happy to carry us through another if I have to. I certainly hope that isn't the case. My hope is that we can continue moving forward to come out of the pandemic and to do so together as a strong community moving forward in a positive way. And that's what I hope for this community. And I hope you'll give me the opportunity to do so with one more term as mayor.
Thank you. And Mr. Noser, your summation.
Yes, she sounds like she's eager to get back a hold of those emergency powers again, but we're going to try to not allow that to happen. Just because you spend more money on something doesn't mean you always have success. If the idea is bad or unsuccessful, it isn't going to matter how much money you spend. She mentioned the district energy program. They could have upgraded these government buildings that used to receive the steam from the county incinerator. You could have upgraded those buildings for $6.5 million. But because we needed to win awards from foundations and our elite peers, we spent $28 million. So you have to ask yourself, is that good governance? And I would say no. Now you have to ask yourself, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And I would say no. And you can't blame everything on the pandemic. We had horrible leadership on the pandemic where the mayor picked and this group to be successful, that group to not be, this group must close. She worked hand in hand with Governor Walz, who was crushing our state and our city, instead of pushing back against him and fighting for small businesses. She left small businesses out to just collapse. And it's probably because, as she just gave her resume, she's spent her entire life in government. She doesn't know what it takes to go out and scratch a dollar out of the dirt. And I think this is part of the lack of perspective that her leadership has. Getting all these grants and all these monies. She's gleefully taking the money from the rest of the state, by the way. We have to live within our means. Your budget at home is constrained by your income, and the city should start doing that too. We're going to go get federal money to build the bridge, and then we have to maintain the bridge. And how many trees are going to go on the bridge, and how many rose bushes? We have to learn our limits, and there's a recession coming. Rather than be off in Amsterdam, I think the mayor should be studying, how is the city going to deal with that crisis of recession? We are going to face another crisis, and believe me, she is not the person that you want at the controls of the ship. So we need to set a new course for Rochester. We need to return to an organic leadership structure where we're not depending on the Germans and not depending on the League of Cities to make our decisions for us. we need to think for ourselves. And look how successful that was going back. We were Rochester after all. The reason it's such a great place to live is not because of Mayor Norton's last 3.5 years at the helm. It's because of all the hard work done by all the citizens that came before her. And so I'm running for my ancestors' sake and for the sake of my children. We must respect the process that brought us to where Rochester is today. I'm the homegrown candidate. I'm the local candidate, and I am well positioned to steer Rochester back to a place where the citizens are in control. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to both of our candidates for your answers and responses today, and for all of those of you who are participating by being here tonight. And we are recording this, so some of you may be seeing this at a later date, and we thank you for that too. If you have further questions for either of the candidates, you can reach them directly at their campaign sites or contact them. We can, if you'd like, if each of you want to go to our Facebook page in the City for Good and put your favored contact there in the comments, then people will have it. And again, in the City for Good Facebook page is a place where you can start to see the recording as well. So again, we thank you for this, and we will soon have the recording on both the Facebook page and our YouTube channel. Now, tomorrow night, we do have another forum for all of the city council candidates for seats 1, 3, and 5. And so we urge you to join us for that. That will also start at 7, and you can get the Zoom link at our
That one that
Facebook.
starts at 6:30.
I'm sorry, 6:30. Yes, I apologize because we have more candidates, so we are starting at 6:30. Thanks, Dave. I knew I would get that wrong. Sorry. But again, thank you to you all. And again, of all things, be sure that you do vote on November 8th, or if you're voting early, do that because it's very important, each and every vote. So thank you and good night.
Good night. Thank you.